You again. You should have stayed dead.
I have come here to kick ass.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome. Figured why not. We are going to go over some of the election irregularities and stuff associated with the ballots, just because I want to stream. So this will be a rather shorter stream. This document's about 32 pages, so we'll read through it. So this is looking back. There was said to be no irregularities or fraud in the 2020 election. The reason this is important is 2024 is coming up. And I think we're going to run into the same bullshit that we did the first time around. So, we're going to get right into it. So it breaks down by state, this document. This document has sources and links. I'll throw it in Discord. So we start with the great state of Georgia. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud. I'll have some of the great quotes that this individual compiled with this document. Georgia was called by 11,779 votes. Fulton County, Georgia, the most populous county in the state, has no digital record of all person votes cast in its original results. So they didn't save any image files or any images of the original vote. And we know how that comes into play. Not a single ballot purportedly cast during the early in-person voting was witnessed to and signed off by poll managers as required by Georgia election rules. Seals were broken and memory cards removed from tabulators for the results of these 315,000 votes, which were printed out on different machines than the ones that tabulated them. This prevented the reconciliation of how many votes were cast on each machine. So if you don't keep record, it's really hard to track. And that could have been the idea. The ballot images of these voting, along with the rest of in-person ballots cast on election day, were destroyed. So that is Hey, what's up, Dylan? How you doing, buddy? Also, everybody doesn't fuck up again and lose his channel. I might. I'm just reading this nice list that this individual put together about things that were kind of funny during the last election. I don't give any information. I can't even give disinformation because I don't give any information. So, there's no information here. I'm just simply reading out some irregularities that I saw that might be important to y'all. I don't know. Do your own research. The ballot images of these votes, along with the rest of the in-person ballots cast on election day, were destroyed. We just went over that one. The vote in Georgia was counted 3 times. The original count, a statewide hand recount, and a second machine count. Each time, the state and Fulton County reported 3 different results. I never shy away from anything, brother. You know that. I don't care what they say. Fulton County did not count the same ballots during the original count and the machine recount. There are 19,541 distinct ballots that appear in one machine count, but not the other. So there's 20,000 votes, roughly. So, I mean, if we're being honest, and it was called by 11,779, that's enough to disrupt even if we only say half of them. If we say they're 50-50, then that's still enough to disrupt the count, enough to change the result of the election. Hell no. Never. Do I not have super chats back right now? I should. No, I don't have super chats back. I just have memberships. That's weird. I'll ask. Not that they'll tell me, but I'll ask. I didn't realize that. Thanks for that. I'm also on Rumble. Do Rumble rants on Rumble. Creators get more. Thousands of fraudulent presidential-only ballots were injected into the second machine count with huge margins favoring Joe Biden. Ballots that are blank except for the presidential contest were counted in batches together, with the pattern appearing in at least 8 counties, including Fulton. This means Georgia did not have the votes to justify the original election, quote, results. I know it does. I know. The second machine count was over 17,000 votes short. Fulton County was instructed to reconcile the results by the Secretary of State and certify its results without divulging the extent of the vote deficiency to the members of the Fulton County Board of Registrations and Elections. Thousands of bogus votes were ultimately added into the election results via the second machine count. This includes 20,977 unsustained votes of unknown origins. The results were missing 17,852 ballot images and included 3,125 duplicate ballot images that were counted twice. That's a whole lot of numbers. At least 2,871 ballots were counted 2 or 3 times in the second machine count, totaling a grand total of 6,118 questionable votes. 88% of Fulton County precincts reported a different total number of votes between the first and second machine count. Huh. The only electronic votes that survived from the first count were the mail-in ballots. Since they were tabulated on a high-speed scanner, their ballot images were automatically updated to the election server. 90% of these approximately 148,000 absentee ballots cast in Fulton County cannot be authenticated. Ballot images for 132,284 mail-in votes have no .sha file, which is created automatically when a ballot is scanned and used to authenticate the digital image of the vote, lacking evidence they were scanned and tabulated properly or even cast by a real voter. 104,994 ballot images files of these mail-in ballots from the original count contained identical modified timestamps suggesting electronic manipulation. We're not suggesting that. We're not suggesting that at all. We would never do something like that. Fulton County does not know how many voters cast votes, and its lack of basic accounting controls make it impossible to determine who really won. In 2020, according to Philip Stark, a University of California, Berkeley professor who invented risk-limiting audits, Stark noted the electronic records of the election are not intact. 376,863 ballot images are missing from the first machine count, which includes all in-person votes in Fulton County. Oh, we'll get to Michigan, baby. None of the 315,000 votes cast during the early voting in Fulton County were witnessed to and signed by the poll manager and 2 poll workers as required by state election rules. The closing tapes for these votes are all unsigned, showed more tabulated votes than the tabulators had recorded as scanning in their protective counters, and recorded improbably low percentages for President Trump. For example, President Trump received only 0.9%, 2.4%, and 3.7% from from some of the tabulators, as if he were a third-party candidate or in a third-world country. These anomalies indicate ballots were not scanned on the tabulators that printed the closing tapes, making the closing tapes fraudulent. Tabulators used in Fulton County during early voting had their seals broken, and memory cards were reprogrammed and inserted into different scanners to count absentee ballots in violation of election rules. This made it impossible to reconcile the true number of votes being tabulated on the machines from the start of the election to the end of counting. Yep. 235,000 absentee ballots were requested and accepted too early prior to the lawful date, 180 days before the 2020 election, which was May 6, 2020. These votes have never been counted in the 2020 election. $4,081 false votes for Joe Biden were included in the hand count audit results for Fulton County. These false votes were a result of 36 accounting errors, which were confirmed by Brian Kemp's office and investigators working for Secretary Brad Raffensperger, yet they have never been removed from the official hand count results. These errors alone would reduce the margin to 7,698 votes. And those are votes that we know are incorrect. They've conceded are incorrect. The hand count audit included 3,935 unaccounted votes for unaccounted for votes due to an 11 missing batch sheets in Fulton County. Differences from the original count to the hand audit total at least 15,690 votes, which is more than the entire election margin alone. This includes the 4,081 false Biden votes, plus missing votes discovered in Gwinnett, 1,642, Fayette, 2,755, Floyd, 2,700, Douglas, 293, and Walton, 284, counties that were likely due to machine counting errors. Thousands of pristine, unfolded absentee ballots were counted during hand count audit in Fulton County, according to at least 6 witnesses, which is the subject of ongoing litigation. These absentee ballots had no folds and went 98% to Joe Biden. Had it been added in a fraudulent manner, said a witness. Obviously not me, but a witness said that. Fulton County certified 59,143 in-person votes on Election Day, despite the fact that only 14,152 people had voted as of 5 p.m. on November 3rd. Evidence suggests the in-person vote total on Election Day was inflated by approximately 37,000 votes. Wow, I wonder where they came from. As records showed no rush to the polls during the final 2 hours of voting, and a screenshot of the in-person Election Day results shared by a government contractor showed only 21,843 people voted at the polls in Fulton County on November 3rd. Fulton County ordered over 1 million absentee ballots days before the 2020 election without any envelopes and the time necessary to mail them. There were only 808,680 active voters in Fulton County as of November 1st, 2020, meaning the county had more blank mail-in ballots than the number of registered voters and ordered them after a vast majority of mail-in ballot requests had already been sent to voters by run-back election services. An estimated 30,000 to 92,670 illicit votes were trafficked in Georgia as part of a massive ballot trafficking operation discovered by True the Vote. The group identified 242 traffickers in Georgia who engaged in 5,662 ballot drops into drop boxes, making an average of 23 runs per trafficker. Over 40% of the illicit drops that were captured on camera were recorded between non-voting hours of midnight and 5 a.m. They were just helping out. There were over 364,000 ineligible voter registrations on the rolls during the 2020 election, and likely 67,284 votes were cast from voters with invalid residency. Massive manipulation of Georgia voter rolls surrounding the 2020 election have been uncovered. This includes 1,500 voter IDs that received credit for voting in 2020, but were not on any voter rolls from 2020, some appearing for the first time on voter rolls on November 4th, 2021, a year after the election. Other findings include manipulation of inactive voters to cast ballots, gifting November 3rd votes up to 2 years after the election, and casting votes on paper or on ballots previously rejected, canceled, or not even turned in. In 2020, there were absentee ballots issued to Bangkok, Thailand, GA, Denver, GA, Detroit, GA, LA, GA, and other fraudulent addresses that don't exist. Ballots were fraudulently cast in 2020 from addresses listed as Bronx, GA, Hilton Head, GA, Louisville, GA, San Diego, GA, New Orleans, GA, French Creek, GA, Virginia Beach, GA, Vicksburg, GA, Baltimore, GA, New York, GA, Sarasota, GA, all with zip codes out of state. There's a lot with Georgia. Bangkok, USA. 43,907 drop-box ballots violated chain of custody requirements in DeKalb County. 59,000 of the 79,460 drop-box ballots in Fulton County were not immediately transported to the election register in violation of the state board election rules. An estimated 355,000 ballots transfer forms for Dropbox ballots are missing statewide. Over 100,000 tally sheets for Fulton County went missing from the hand count audit and remained missing for months after the election. In early January 2021, Ruby Freeman asked for an attorney because she wanted to go live on every platform to divulge information about how the USB ports were used in the 2020 election. The expert cyber report by Professor Alex J. Halderman explained how external USB ports with election-changing malware can be inserted into, well, I'm not going to say it, machines with anyone with access, including election workers. The presence of QR code mismatch error with the Dominion tabulators that systematically undercounts votes were found in 65 of 67 Georgia counties where records were available. The error was present in system log files for tabulators used in elections in 20, 21, and 22. What's up, Froggy? The election results in Georgia 2020 are not only unreliable, but were electronically altered and supported by the state's own election records. The appearance of tens of thousands of unconfirmed ballots and subsequent hand and machine counts suggest reconciliation happened after the election, meaning after it was clear what the margins were needed to win. Fulton County election officials admitted in early 2021 they do not engage in any reconciliation until weeks after Election Day. This means the number of voters showing up at the polls each day of voting is not checked with the number of ballots tabulated each day, a basic process to ensure the number of ballots and voters match and cannot be manipulated later. We can't start reconciling that until usually a couple days before certification, said then Fulton County Elections Director Richard Barron during a January 2021 board meeting, because we have to get a report from No Ink. I think No Ink sends us to the state, or No Ink sends those directly to us, but those aren't compiled then on election night, so we don't have any way to balance those. Then that's like a post-election process we do. All right, have fun, Digger. Hey, what's up, Linda? What's up, Froggy? So that is that's obviously Georgia. As you can see, there's a lot of questions there. And I think that we should be able to ask questions. I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm not saying anything to the sort. I'm not saying, oh shit, how did that work? I didn't push that button intentionally. Not saying any of that stuff. I'm just reading out some of the irregularities that have been compiled and placed in this nice list with sources that I'll drop in Discord later. Wisconsin, all law has either been derived from the consent of the people, established by necessity, confirmed by custom, or divine providence. The great state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin was called by 20,682 votes. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled drop boxes are illegal under Wisconsin law in a 4-3 decision issued in July of 22. The Wisconsin Election Commissioner Megan Wolf unilaterally declared ballot drop boxes could be used to vote in 2020 elections, even though the WC's commissioners never voted to adopt this memo. Ahead of the November 2020 election, Wolf encouraged clerks to use creative solutions to deploy drop boxes that she said could be unstaffed, quote, end quote. There were 528 drop boxes used in the general election and a total of 1,969,274 absentee votes cast, including 1,346,731 votes cast by mail and 653,236 in person. In a concurring opinion to the ruling finding drop boxes to be unlawful, Justice Rebecca Bradley writes, quote, if the right to vote is to have any meaning at all, elections must be conducted according to law. Throughout history, tyrants have claimed electoral victory via elections conducted in violation of governing law. And Wisconsin elected officials derive their powers from the consent of the governed, end quote. Wasn't it Kansas? I don't know. The right to vote presupposes the rule of law governs elections. If elections are conducted outside the law, the people have not conferred their consent on the government. Such elections are unlawful, and the results are illegitimate. Justice Bradley concluded thousands of votes have been cast by this unlawful method using drop boxes, thereby directly harming Wisconsin voters. The illegality of these drop boxes weakens people's faith that the election produced an outcome reflective of their will, Justice Bradley writes. The Wisconsin voters and all lawful voters are injured when the institution charged with administering Wisconsin elections does not follow the law, even the results in question. Electoral outcomes obtained by the unlawful procedures corrupt the institution of voting, degrading the very foundation of free government. Unlawful votes do not dilute lawful votes so much as they pollute them, which in turn pollutes the integrity of the results. In the city of Milwaukee, nearly half of all its votes were cast by mail, totaling 217,424 ballots. The city deployed 15 drop boxes, with election officials claiming the drop boxes would be under 24-hour surveillance. However, after the election, not a single municipality in the country produced a video surveillance of drop boxes in response to open records requests. Various responses, including no records exist for your request, no video from your requested time frame, no such records exist, or no security camera. The election integrity group True the Vote identified 107 ballot traffickers in Milwaukee County between October 20th and November 3rd, 2020. Each made 20 or more visits to drop boxes. Each trafficker made an average of 26 visits and as many as 15 in one day, and made multiple visits to non-governmental organizations. Oh, you just got a notification? The 107 traffickers made a total of 2,824 trips to drop boxes during the 2020 election, with the majority of visits occurring after 8 p.m. In 2020, there was a surge of indefinitely confined votes in Wisconsin, resulting in 220,404 votes cast from individuals who are exempt from showing voter ID. The surge of suspected votes was due to Democrat election clerks giving advice that was deemed illegal after the election, instructing voters to identify themselves as disabled during the COVID-19 pandemic to avoid voter ID laws. Not my opinion. Not my opinion, just reading the facts. Indefinite confined voters who are supposed to be physically unable to go to the polls due to age, disability, or illness increased by an astounding 393% in Dane County from 2016 to 2020, 492% in Racine County, and 281% in Milwaukee County, and 287% in the state overall. Could just be a Wisconsin thing. There were just 56,970 identified confined votes in 2016 and roughly 70,000 in 2019. In 2020, however, there was 220,404 votes cast using indefinite confinement status. Over 77% of these individuals had never been listed as indefinitely confined before. The Wisconsin Legislative Audit Bureau identified 48,554 people who voted as indefinitely confined in November 2020 who had never provided photo identification or never had photo identifications on file with clerks, which is more than twice the margin of 20,682. Scott McDonald, the Democratic clerk of Dane County, which encompasses the area of Madison, told all residents they could identify themselves as indefinitely confined because of COVID, specifically citing it's a way to get around the voter ID law. McDonald previously blamed Wisconsin's voter ID law for President Trump's victory in 2016, claiming in a 2018 Twitter post that thousands of voters were deterred from voting due to the new ID law. In 2020, McDonald urged all voters to declare themselves as indefinitely confined in order to obtain an absentee ballot and skip the step of uploading an ID in the April 2020 primary election. Once a voter is identified as indefinitely confined, they continue to receive absentee ballots automatically for the subsequent elections. I urge all voters who request a ballot and have trouble presenting a valid ID to indicate that they are indefinitely confined, McDonald said in a Facebook post. That seems hyper legitimate. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled in December 2020 that the pandemic did not render all Wisconsin electors indefinitely confined. They were obviating the requirement of a valid photo identification to obtain an absentee ballot, and the clerk's interpretation of the Wisconsin election laws was erroneous. The Wisconsin Election Commission ordered nursing homes to violate the law by now allowing special voting deputies inside their facilities, which led to the election fraud where incapable elderly residents had votes cast in their name with the assistance of nursing home staff. Hey, what's up, Nandor? An investigation by the Racine County Sheriff found the Wisconsin Elections Commission shattered state election laws. Nursing homes saw an unusual surge in voting activity, and at least 8 cases of felony voter fraud were found in one nursing home, accounting for nearly 1 in 5 families of residents. The Wisconsin Election Commission admitted it was essentially telling the clerks to break the law by ordering the sending of absentee ballots to nursing homes and barring special voting deputies inside facilities. An interim report released by special counsel Michael Gableman raised serious and legitimate questions about the certification of Wisconsin's election results may have been undertaken in an unlawful and unconstitutional manner. Gableman claimed that Democracy in the Park events in Madison involved numerous possible law violations, calling into question the validity of over 17,000 absentee ballots. Outdoor events to collect mail-in ballots were subject to numerous complaints, and it's not clear that all the workers at those events were properly deputized and trained, swore, and filed mandatory oath of office, or documents related to the absentee ballots were properly handled. The Office of Special Counsel also claimed evidence of undue influence by private funded groups who leveraged large grants to certain Wisconsin cities in order to co-opt our election apparatus to their benefit. George? The report confirms that at least 17.5% of election clerks were not properly trained, and that exploitation of elders occurred in nursing homes. In one example, Merrill Barrett, who was 104 years old and did not recognize her own children, had a ballot cast in her name in the 2020 election. I bet she voted for Biden. The Office of Special Counsel's second interim report found nursing homes in Milwaukee, Dane, and Racine counties with 100% turnout due to the Wisconsin Election Commission's order. That's just unreasonable. The special counsel said it possessed evidence of nursing home staff and directors who assisted residents in completing ballots, assisted residents in obtaining ballots, pressured residents to vote, collected completed ballots from residents, forged signatures of residents, illegally returned residents' ballots to municipal clerks by mail by placing the ballots in drop boxes and or delivering them directly to the clerk, presumed or assisted incompetent persons to complete and cast ballots in November 2020 election. Well, those were all Biden voters, and that's the only thing wrong with them is they're incompetent because they voted for Biden. Up to and including persons who have had their right taken away to vote by court order due to mental incompetence. And Kool-Aid hair. The second interim report also detailed an $8.8 million election bribery scheme involving Mark Zuckerberg's Center for Tech and Civil Life in the cities of Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, Kenosha, and Green Bay. In the agreement, the cities took CTCL's money to facilitate in-person and absentee voting within their respective city. The Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan developed for CTCL facilitated grants to major Wisconsin cities to deploy drop boxes for mail-in ballots, including $50,000 to Green Bay, $40,000 to Kenosha, $50,000 to Madison, and $58,500 to Milwaukee. Also included $18,000 to Racine. That's true. That's probably the only one that gets away with it. Whitney made a director of, hey, what's up, man bun? 6-month member. Glad to see you back. I'm glad to be back. For now. Till I piss somebody off again. Again. Whitney May, the director of government services at CTCL, posted numerous anti-Trump posts on social media, including telling people don't vote for Trump in 2016. Internal emails from election officials in Green Bay revealed Michael Spitzer Rubenstein, where's cheese, a former Democratic Party operative, served as de facto elections administrator and access to Green Bay's absentee ballots days before the election. Office of the Special Counsel referenced this case and has evidence that this grantee was funded by CTCL, was directly involved in all aspects of management of election officials, was entrusted with only sets of physical keys to the city's central count location managed the transportation of ballots and instructed the counting of unlawful ballots that arrived at the central count location beyond the lawful time window. I can't do it, Cheese. So that wraps up Wisconsin. We're getting down there. Ron, I wanted to see who was left because I didn't read. So we have Pennsylvania, Arizona, and I think we finished with Michigan. We do. So Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan. So what we've read so far is that there was some serious concerns that should be addressed and go further than just saying that we think that Donald Trump won. It goes to, there's certain things that we should probably take a look at. Pennsylvania was called by 80,555 votes. Months after the election, there were 121,240 more votes than voters, according to the Pennsylvania Department of State. By law, Pennsylvania cannot certify an election with this type of discrepancy. Republican lawmakers led by State Representative Frank Ryan were tracking the vote discrepancy in real time in the statewide Uniform Registry of Electors SURE system. Ryan, a certified public accountant, initially reported there were 170,830 more votes than voters in the presidential race, more than twice the margin in Pennsylvania. These numbers just don't add up, and alleged certification of presidential election results were absolutely premature, unconfirmed, and in error. Pennsylvania Department of State's office called this obvious misinformation. Huh. I've never had obvious misinformation. While admitting the only way to determine the number of voters who voted in November for the SURE system is through the vote histories, which they said Philadelphia, Allegheny, and other counties still had not completed. In admission, the election was certified without ensuring number of votes and voters matched in the SURE system. The election was certified on November 21st, 2020, and a Department of State statement came on December 29th, 2020. Of course, the SURE system was checked and downloaded weekly with updated voter histories from the general election until all counties uploaded their vote histories, which was not completed until February 2021. At this time, there were still over 121,000 votes that did not have corresponding voter in the SURE system. So they have one of the most comprehensive systems. It just wasn't matching the entire time by huge margins. The statement by the Department of State that the voting would reconcile once the counties completed their SURE uploads was incorrect. According to Verity Vote, when the final county finished uploading their voter histories and closed the election in SURE, it was February 1st, 2021, which was the same day that Secretary of State Kathy Bukovar announced her resignation. At the time that Philadelphia closed the election in SURE, the voter history showed that the county accepted at least 7,944 ballots that could not be associated with a registered voter. You have to throw that out, even if we're not going any further. Even if you're not overturning results, if there's 8,000 votes that you cannot count that are not associated with anyone that lives in your state, they go in the trash. I mean, that's pretty simple. Pennsylvania credited 71,893 people for voting who had returned mail-in ballots after Election Day, and these individuals were included in the voter history files. This includes 50,285 received between November 4th and November 6th, 11,570 received between November 7th and November 11th, and 10,038 that were received on or after November 12th. BlackRock claimed only 10,000 ballots were received between the close of polls on Election Day and November 6th. It's just have faith in your election systems, but it's totally fucked. While 71,893 people received credit for voting by mail, these votes purportedly did not count. Even while including these voters in the total number who participated in the election, Pennsylvania still came up 121,240 voters short. So 121,000 voters short. Make of that what you will. I don't give any advice here. According to the Department of State data, there were 7,035,746 ballots cast in the 2020 presidential election, including all write-in voters, overvotes, and undervotes. After all counties closed the election, only 6,914,556 voters were credited with participation in the 2020 general election. This reveals the voter deficit of 121,240 votes. In Philadelphia, hundreds of thousands of mail-in votes were unlawfully counted in secret in defiance of a court order, while Republican poll watchers were thrown out of the buildings where voting took place. So the court system doesn't even work anymore. I mean, we could take time to say that I don't give advice. I'm just reading a document. I don't know that these actually exist. Any of this information. U.S. Attorney Bill McSwain was told to stand down and not investigate election irregularities by Attorney General Bill Barr. McSwain said he was instructed to not discuss the allegations of voter fraud he received and to pass any serious investigations along to then Secretary of State Josh Shapiro, a Democrat. Who promised days before the election that President Trump is going to lose. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook poured over $25 million into the administration of the election in Pennsylvania in 2020. Over $10 million went to the Democrat-controlled jurisdiction of Philadelphia, which included $5.5 million on ballot processing equipment and $552,000 for drop boxes. Thanks for that, Mark. A lawsuit filed in Delaware County revealed video evidence of election officials discussing destroying election evidence from the November 2020 election. It is a felony, one official says after talking about the need to get rid of voting pads and secondary scanners. Sources involved in the litigation alleged Delaware County officials violated numerous election laws and that the destruction of records was done to ensure that records eventually provided actually matched the election results that were reported in 2020. Jamaica cheese. Delaware County received $2.2 million from Zuckerberg's Center for Tech and Civic Life, which spent it on recruiting and training a sufficient number of poll workers, setting up drop-box locations for voters to return ballots, and get out the vote efforts. The election integrity group True the Vote said Philadelphia was the worst offender it witnessed when investigating the widespread ballot trafficking scheme operated across multiple swing states in 2020. They identified 1,155 ballot traffickers who each visited at least 10 drop boxes and 5 NGOs. Some ballot traffickers made up hundreds of trips to drop boxes. Hundreds of trips. Where do you get hundreds of trips worth of ballots? Hundreds. All right, so we go to the great state of Arizona. Arizona was called by a margin of 10,457 votes. Maricopa County accepted 20,500 mail-in ballots after Election Day, including 18,000 more than the entire election margin on November 4th, picked up from the U.S. Postal Services. By law, ballots must be received no later than 7 p.m. on Election Day, which was November 3rd. The 20,000 ballots recorded as incoming from the USPS on and after November 4th were sufficient quantity to change the result of the 2020 general election in Arizona, according to Veridity Vote. Findings were based on Maricopa County's official elections department records, which were withheld from a public records request for nearly 7 months. The records show that 18,000 mail-in ballots received on November 4th, 1,000 received on November 5th, and 1,500 received on November 6th. The 18,000 mail-in ballots received on November 4th subsequently counted represented a significant spike in ballots received, higher than every single day total since October 29, 2020. Receipt of mail-in ballots had steadily declined from 14,000 ballots on October 29th to 2,500 on November 3rd. I'm not going to read all those middle ones because I'll trip up about 700 times. Oh shit, I could have left them up there. In the 2020 general election, 420,987 ballots failed signature verification standards. Thus, the election was openly vulnerable to fraud, end quote, according to an ongoing analysis conducted by We the People Arizona Alliance presented to the state legislature. The initial analysis of 380,976 ballots using the official state records and official signature verification training techniques identified 181,378 ballots that should not have been counted, or nearly half of all reviewed. This includes 1,870 blank envelopes, some of which were approved on November 5th and November 8th, 542 with the signature other than the voter, 2,104 scribbles, 128 duplicate voters, 48,117 unreasonably different control signatures. Throw them all out. 1,875 where the signature did not match until after the election. 36,034 control signatures that did not match the voter. 4,433 unusable control signatures. 47,366 that failed Secretary of State standards, and 38,909 egregious signature mismatches where not one point of the signature matched any on file. Not one point. Where am I getting all this info? It's a document that was compiled by an election group, and there is links and sources attached to it. So I was going to throw it in Discord. I don't know if you're in Discord, but in the case of 1,875 votes, the ballot envelopes did not have a signature match on election day, but matching signatures were later put in the file for the voter either January 28, 2021, February 3rd, 2021, February 8, 2021. There were 783 signatures digitally inserted on February 3rd, 2021 alone. I'll get it to you, Tony. Since findings were presented to the Arizona State Legislature, the number of egregious mismatches found has increased to 76,354, over 7 times the election margin. This is an error rate of 9.3% on ballot envelopes reviewed. Throughout the signature verification analysis, which remains ongoing, Analysts have consistently found 20% do not meet the Secretary of State standard, and 9% are egregious violations. Extrapolated to all 1.9 million ballots in 2020, 176,700 should have been rejected for improper signature verification due to egregious signature mismatches. Maricopa County has no documented chain of custody for the 740,000 ballots from the 2020 election. Out of the 920,000 or 923,000, early votes, ballots accepted at vote centers or drop boxes, only 183,406 ballots are accounted for on ballot transport forms, when 80% of the ballot transport forms have no ballot counts. That's cute. Yeah, just that's always great. You always love to see that. Without proper documentation of how many votes were cast at the time they were cast, it's impossible to verify the origin and the true total of ballots given in an election. Without this count, there's no way to determine if the transport staff retrieved one ballot or 1,000 ballots according to validity vote. Keeping a proper chain of custody is more than a best practice. It's encouraging trust in our democracy, according to the Election Assistance Commission. Of the 1,895 early vote ballot transport forms, 48 did not have the required 2 witness signatures attesting to the ballot transfer, including some with no witness signatures at all. As a result, the public is not assured that both parties witnessed the transfer of ballots as required. I mean, that's a reasonable inference. My signature never changes, Linda. It's always the same. It's always been the same, but I get it. I mean, if it's changing, then I'd probably submit a new one too, just to make sure you're getting counted, you know? Millions of files of the 2020 general election data and security logs were deleted from the elections management server and purged on critical days, including the day before the Arizona audit of the 2020 election began on February 2nd, 2021. You know how you tell somebody that nothing's happening? You purge all the data the day before the audit begins. Like, if I was being truthful and honest, what I would do is I would tell you guys that I'm going to upload this file to Discord tomorrow, 1/4. And then at like midnight tonight, just fucking nuke it from the internet. That would be the way to be transparent. That would be. I mean, oh my God. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors admitted they purged the system and moved the election data after they received a subpoena in testimony before the U.S. House of Representatives. 2 precincts in Prima County had over 100% turnout for mail-in ballots, and 40 precincts had over 97% returned. I will, Linda, but mine's such a scribble. There's not much to it. Like it. According to ballot tracks, my Colorado ballot was never counted in the past election. I revoked my registration after the second time. Shit. The national mail-in ballot return rate was 71%, but Pima County, the mail-in ballot return rate was 15% higher and 19% higher than all the counties combined in the entire state of Arizona, with one precinct with 99.5% mail-in turnout had 9,812 ballots counted. Another precinct with 100.6% turnout had 2,182 ballots returned, but only 2,170 mail-ins were ever sent out. So they had 12 more ballots returned than were sent. These two precincts totaling 11,994 ballots, which alone is more than the margin needed to alter the outcome, of the presidential election. In all, there were 264,000 votes from precincts in Pima County with over 92% turnout for mail-in ballots. Significant anomalies were discovered for mail-in ballot returns in Pima County and precincts with anomalous high turnout of over 92% in Pima County. Mail-in ballots started flipping from 6% Republican for Biden to 40% of Republicans voting for Biden. Holy shit. Wow. The election integrity group True the Vote identified more than 202 ballot traffickers in Maricopa County who made 4,282 individual drop box visits during the 2020 general election. 2 individuals were charged and pled guilty to ballot harvesting in Yuma County, Arizona during the 2020 primary election. A computer scientist testified that an algorithm similar to what's used in cruise control or self-driving cars was present, affecting the early votes in Pima and Maricopa counties in the 2020 general, with the ability to reach and maintain a predetermined set point outcome despite unplanned disturbances. So it's basically predictive. Walter C. Daughtry, a senior lecturer emeritus in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Texas A&M, who developed courses in artificial intelligence, expert systems, programming, and software design, analyzing cast vote records, finding ballots in Maricopa County and Pima County were artificially processed through a tabulators tracking a proportional integral device type control function and a closed-loop feedback system. Daughtry, who had received over $2.8 million in grant funding, was previously consulted as a computer expert by the New York Times, Washington Post, IBM, Texas Department of Agriculture, U.S. Customs, as well as classified works, discovered significant and systematic decline in the cumulative ratio as counting progresses in the early mail-in and in-person votes for the presidential election results in Maricopa and Pima County. For example, the first block of ballots being 75% for a candidate, the next block of ballots being 74% for a candidate, the next block of ballots being 73% for a candidate, and so on, systematically declining in all the way to election day. Daughtry's expert opinion is that the downward sloping line in the sequence that votes were recorded indicated strong control. Cumulative ratio of Biden to Trump votes for all cast vote records before election day recorded order for Pima County declines over 300% to 150% by election day. Such a uniform and predictable pattern is so statistically implausible that it would not occur without artificial manipulation, end quote, according to Daughtry. The data's lack of independence cannot be explained by the preference of Democrats voting earlier than Republicans. So that wraps up Arizona. Some bullshit about official Kung Flu malarkey. Now we go to the best state of all 50 that's ran by a communist currently. We need to change that. Michigan was called by 154,188 votes. A record 5,579,317 votes were cast and certified in Michigan in the 2020 general, the highest turnout in 60 years. To date, Michigan has never shown 5,579,317 voters listed for the 2020 election in its qualified voter file, the state's database for all voter registration records. Yeah, that's weird. So some empirical data. So I obviously voted in Michigan in person. It it was not busy. I vote in the city. I remember it being busy during like the Obama election because there were a lot of people in the inner cities that came out to vote for Obama. Uh, the 2020 election, I don't I don't believe I waited at all, or if it was a very very short time. Um, so just some empirical data from somebody who votes in Michigan. As of December 2023, Michigan has 271,566 more votes than the number of voters listed on its qualified voter file for November 3rd, 2020. More than 1.5 times the election margin. Interesting. In data obtained from the Secretary of State's office on nearly a monthly basis since the election, the most voters it's ever recorded on this qualified file was 5,511,303 voters in April of 2021. This means that Michigan's own election record showed 68,014 more votes than voters. However, the number of voters listed in qualified voter file has been in flux ever since December 2020 and always short of the voters needed to reconcile the total votes cast. A complete list of voters from 2020 has never been provided. Oh, really? Huh. The number of voter IDs listed as voting in 2020 has steadily declined since February of 22. As of December 2023, there was a total of 5,307,751 voters listed as voting on November 3rd, 2020 in the qualified file. Voter history files continue to be removed from the record, resulting in 271,566 less vote history records than necessary to reconcile the results. Each month, voter histories from the 2020 election are being manipulated. Thousands of unique votes are removed from the voter history files and other votes added. Since December 2020, 270,559 voter histories for 2020 have been removed, while 103,128 have been added. Way to just switch them around. Lake one in the landslide. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure she did. Have I looked in Hennepin? No. Well, I have, but this specific document doesn't have Hennepin in it. Over on the Rimbles. Individual voter histories are constantly changing, including the history of the state's Democratic governor. I can't say her name. Gretchen Bitchmer, whose voting history is missing votes throughout 2020. God, I probably just kidnapped her by saying her name. Fucking bitch. A complete list of voters was requested via the Freedom of Information Act request in December of 21 and took 9 months for the state to fulfill. 2 data sets were provided, neither matched. The first data set fell 22,146 voters short, but the second data set was 120,883 absentee ballots short. Democrats threatened Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers and doxed children in order to certify their 2020 election results. They did that. I know that for a fact. Monica Palmer, the chair of the Wayne County Board of Supervisors, cited the fact that 70% of Detroit's mail-in ballot counts were still out of balance and unexplained from the August primary as a reason why she initially voted against certifying the election results. Palmer was bullied and threatened and feared for her safety due to threats she was receiving for voting no. That document was never signed officially, by the way. A Democrat Michigan State Representative elect attacked Palmer over a certification vote and revealed where her children went to school, saying, "I want you to think about what that means for your kids." Officials in Detroit illegally blocked Republican pool challengers' access, covered windows, called the cops, and denied lawful challengers in an order to count ballots in secret. That also happened. I was a poll challenger in 2020. Affidavits and video evidence revealed thousands of ballots were delivered through a back door at TCF Center after a central counting facility in Detroit. That also happened, and there's video that exists of that. But it was just camera equipment. You guys are being bigots. At 3:30 a.m. on election night, there's video of that. Report seeking to debunk issues on fraud released by the Michigan State Senate Oversight Committee confirmed a large volume of ballots were delivered to TCF Center with no chain of custody in the middle of the night. An estimated 289,866 absentee ballots were identified as sent to people who never requested them, something that would be illegal according to the Senate committee. I didn't request an absentee ballot. I received one. Mike Zuckerberg gave Michigan $16.8 million through his nonprofit Center Tech and Civic Life. Detroit received $7.4 million to dramatically expand the vote for Democrats, and they did. The grant financed drop boxes to facilitate the return of absentee ballots like the ones that came in the TCF Center after midnight. The election integrity group True the Vote uncovered the same pattern of widespread ballot trafficking between NGOs and ballot drop boxes in Michigan. Numerous instances of ballot stuffing were caught on camera in Detroit, including video where one woman can be seen going to a drop box and abruptly returning to her car after realizing a stack had no signatures. The woman then signs the ballots and deposits the illicit ballot she had just signed into the drop box. Oh, come on. Like, all the cameras look like paper on the collision. Well, it was paper. So it was paper to cover the cameras to protect them from the harsh Michigan winter that didn't start yet. No, they were fucking ballots. They were 100% ballots. Secretary Jocelyn Benson made unlawful changes to signature verification rules from absentee ballots, ordering election workers to presume all were legitimate. Then why have one? A judge ruled Benson's order was invalid, but not until months following the election, and just 0.1% of mail-in ballots were rejected in the November 2020 election for signature issues. The rejection rate for mismatching signatures was just 0.04%, as only 1,400 of 3.4 million ballots were rejected. Secretary Benson has lost in court 6 times for issues related to the 2020 election. A fraudulent voter registration scheme was discovered in October 2020 and documented in a police report in Muskegon County and hidden for nearly 3 years after the 2020 election. That's true. A city clerk in Muskegon witnessed a woman drop off between 8,000 and 10,000 voter registrations at the clerk's office on October 8, 2020, many appearing to be fraudulent. The incident was reported to the Muskegon Police Department, and 1 week later, 8,000 new voter registrations in Muskegon would amount to over 20% of the city's population of only 38,000 residents. It's fine. They were at a block party. It was a barbecue, and they all filled out the damn ballot at one time and turned the whole thing in. An ensuing investigation confirmed thousands of voter registrations in the same handwriting and many individual non-existent addresses. The suspect told Michigan State Police that she was being paid $1,150 per week to find unregistered voters and provide them with a form so that they could register to vote or obtain their absentee ballot. The police found dozens of new phones and hundreds of prepayment cards during the investigation. Also, some guns and money. A Department of State analyst consulted with the investigation confirmed a quantity of voter applications were clearly fraudulent and others were highly suspicious, having either erroneous or missing key pieces of information. Others appeared to be legitimate. The organization behind the scheme was GBI Strategies, a firm hired by numerous Democratic campaigns. GBI Strategies was funded by a super PAC called Black PAC, which paid the firm $11,254,919 to register voters for Joe Biden in 2020. Employees of GBI Strategies were paid $15 an hour or $120 per day, according to the police report. Fight for 15, baby. Black PAC. GBI Strategies was believed to be operating not just in Muskegon, but throughout Michigan and in other swing states. AP's favorite person, Democrat Attorney General Dana Nessel. Office contacted the Muskegon Police Department and asked Michigan State Police to assist with a joint investigation. The Michigan Police then turned their investigation over to the wordless ass FBI. Andrew Cloister, Deputy General Counsel of the United States Office of Personnel Management during the Trump administration, said he was made aware of the investigation into GBI Strategies before the 2020 election and attempted to raise the issue for further investigation. He was informed there were standing orders not to deal with election matters in the offices of the White House Counsel Office and Attorney General Bill Barr. The investigation was not made public until 2023 after police reports were obtained through a FOIA request. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the compiled list of swing state voter irregularities. Not going to say the F word. Voter irregularities. Peaker Moose over on Rumble. In the 2020 election, 760,000 people cast a ballot in Hennepin County. Of these, 531,600 cast absentee ballots and 228,400 voted at their polling office or polling place on election day. Yeah, and I think that the ability to get away with that is really what harmed all of us and made this election a questionable one. Excuse me. So I think it's one of those things where we have to do better and we have to keep it tighter, and I don't think we're going to get much help from anybody, frankly. I think we're going to have to go this one alone. And kind of make sure that there's no funny business, I guess. So the document has been dropped in general chat in Discord. So if you want to go over and look at it, take a look at that. Tony, I will send it off to you before I get off the computer here. But I'm just so surprised by all this info. Oh wait, I'm not surprised. See, you changed your vote. It's almost like you voted on election day. It got changed. Obviously, I feel like the only thing we can do at this point is make it so ridiculously overwhelming that our candidates win, and there's not an opportunity for them to cheat. I think it was very close. I think it was the numbers were almost so big that they were unable to cheat, but I think it was just on the cusp of them being able to get away with it. And we see the bellwether counties, we see the irregularities, we see exit polling, we see data. I mean, we know who President Trump is. I mean, all these things contribute to we're probably getting fucked over here. but we just don't know. So, yeah, just that's the best thing I got for you. Keep your eyes open. Check me out on Rumble. No, but I'm never gonna walk away from anything. I'm never gonna step away from anything. And this came to my attention recently, and it was one of the things that I wanted to cover because I think it's incredibly important. Incredibly important for us to watch what's going on and really have some understanding and kind of knowledge of what we have. So, I think if not, we're doomed to repeat it, ladies and gentlemen. So, I try and look forward. Is Ozzy not live? I was gonna throw people over to him, but asshole's not live. Let's see. The alternate. Sorry, I'm typing. Gonna have to wait. There we go. We'll send you guys over to Dilly, but yeah, keep your eyes out. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. And is Hayden live? Because I just tried to dump to him and I didn't see him. Oh shit. Well, I guess we're doing it here. Hang on. We're not going anywhere. See how quick I can click. I almost missed I was on. So we'll just stay here and do this here.
At the T-minus
So this
1
is
minute
a Swedish broadband satellite. This is
Falcon
on a
9 will be
Falcon 9.
in startup, and this is when the rocket's flight computer will take over the launch count.
We're T-minus 1 minute and 21 seconds on a Falcon 9.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there you heard that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. Next, we wait for the go for launch from the launch director.
Glad I saw it, because I wouldn't have made it back on.
LD, go for launch.
And we are go
and
for
there
launch.
You heard that the LD is go for launch. So at T-minus 38 seconds, all systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the Ovzon 3 payload.
Ovzon 3, go for launch.
T-minus 15 seconds to count. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2,
Go
1,
SpaceX, go Ovzon.
0, mission, liftoff. Vehicle catching that range. M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Go back and replay it. I'll do it after.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the Ovzon 3 payload. Now, during
Lost
the rocket's
gas.
ascent, we'll tilt the engines, the technical term
How
for that
good I
being
am.
gimbling, and that's when we turn the rocket horizontally in what we
Power
call
and telemetry is nominal.
a gravity turn. The rocket will still be going up, but will now also be headed horizontally away from the launch pad. Moments ago, we also throttled the engines down in
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
preparation for max Q or maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
And there's that call out for max Q, and this is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere. The rocket typically needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. As the vehicle continues to ascend, make sure to watch that telemetry at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Coming up shortly, we're going to have 5 events in rapid succession, starting with MECO, or main engine cutoff. This will be followed by stage separation. Then we'll have the stage 1 flip. This will be followed by the second engine start 1. And then lastly, we'll have the boost back burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. And the sequence of events should start in about 10 seconds from now.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
Great
And
stage
back ignition.
separation, as always.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
So it looks like they're going to boost back.
And there you
back
heard
to
and
land
saw those
on
events
land.
happening back to back with MECO, followed by stage separation, stage 1 flip, followed by the second engine start 1, and then the stage 1 boost back startup. Coming up shortly will be fairing separation. This is when we jettison the fairing halves away from the second stage. And as I mentioned earlier, both fairings are already flight proven, and we'll be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again once they fall back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there's that call out for fairing separation. In just a few moments, we should see the boost back burn end on the Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And there's that confirmation of boost back shutdown on the Falcon 9 first stage. It's T plus 3 minutes and 40 seconds into tonight's mission. Now, just past the T plus 6 minute mark, you should see on your screen the Falcon 9 first stage's entry burn. To start the entry burn, we'll relight 3 of the Merlin 1D engines, starting with the center engine known as E9, and this will be followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines, which slow down the vehicle as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. During the entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but it's still moving incredibly fast, and this causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume, and this deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. That soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each flight, the soot builds up a little more on the outside of the vehicle. Now, given that tonight's mission is this booster's 10th overall, that soot layer is noticeably visible on the skin of the booster.
I can't restart the video until it's replaying, so.
On the left-hand side of your screen, we've got live views from our Falcon 9 first stage, and on the right side is a ground tracking shot of that booster as it descends back to Earth. And as I mentioned earlier, you can see the speed of that rocket with the telemetry shown at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. As I discussed earlier, reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in critical scientific research. The Falcon 9 first stage that is supporting tonight's mission will perform this entry burn for the 10th time, and that entry burn should start in about 25 seconds from now.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's that
Entry burn, we
confirmation
can see
of
that engine.
startup of the entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage. As a reminder, on the left-hand side of your screen is a view from the booster live, and the right side shows a ground tracking shot of the booster.
It's a much steeper, quicker descent.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown. Stage 1 FTS is safed.
And there's confirmation of entry burn shutdown on the first stage. Now, the Merlins on the first stage are optimized for sea level, and these achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust each during ascent and descent. At liftoff, Falcon 9's first stage has thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power.
Nominal trajectory.
And is consuming approximately 700 gallons of fuel per second. We also just heard that call out of nominal trajectory. Coming up in just about 10 seconds, we should see the landing burn start on our Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 1 is transonic. Second stage in terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing burn.
And there's confirmation of the stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 FTS is saved. MVAC shutdown. Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you have it. This landing marks SpaceX's 261st recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. And as a reminder, we'll be ending the webcast here at the request of our customer. We also just heard a confirmation of nominal parking orbit. All of us here at SpaceX want to thank our customer Ovzon 3 for entrusting us with tonight's mission. We also want to give...
Well, good job, SpaceX, yet again. Nice landing back on land. And yeah, good work, SpaceX. And we did it here. It happens sometimes. But all right, I sent you somewhere. I don't remember where the hell I sent you, so it'll be there. You'll go somewhere. Tell them I said hi. And yeah. But thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, that paper's in Discord. If anybody's in Discord, if you want it some other way, let me know and I'll get it to you somehow. So until then, take care, everybody. Have a good night. And I will see you at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So about 2 hours. Take care.